How's it going, guys? Joe here. Today we're going to continue modifying the Fitbit data collection, so let's just get to it. So I wasn't originally even planning on doing a live stream today, but I analyzed the data from last night, and there's kind of a change that I want to make to it. It really doesn't make a lot of sense what it's doing right now, but I thought of a way that it probably could be a lot better. So let's just talk about that real quickly. So essentially, the data collection actually looks like this. So here I got a slightly more proper night. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of zeros, but literally every time there's movement, it either collects zero or whatever it is. If there's, as long as there's like at least 300 motion. If there's less, then it just keeps reporting zero, and that's absolutely understandable with the ternary operator that we ended up doing in the last stream. So something that's worth noting regarding that is I'll take a look at the sleep. Well, actually, it's worth mentioning that forget exactly where this occurred, but see 350 right there. If I were to look at so essentially, if I were to look at my sleep chart for today, and that's, by the way, that's the most amount of sleep I've gotten in quite a while. But if I look at today's sleep chart, which is probably not 100% accurate, if I also look at the average at, I think it was, let's see if I could find exactly where that is. So 60 right there. See there, it says 67 at 350. That's like, I believe, the first moment that it was above my resting heart rate of 61 at the moment. At least according to the Fitbit. Who knows if that's actually accurate. Even the heart rate sensor may not be fully accurate either. Like, I know I say that the sleep chart might be inaccurate, but there's pretty good odds that the heart rate could also be inaccurate. So yeah, so I think it might be, I think of all smart devices, Fitbit is one of the closest from my understanding, but I don't know this for certain, but and another good example of inaccuracy. So according to, let's see, come on, doing this live, which isn't smart, like trying to get the logistics of the live stream. Anyway, so for example, I actually had a de-isled today, and I believe it happened right there because I accidentally drifted, and then all of a sudden I accidentally woke up. So essentially I woke up from a lucid dream today, and I rapidly re-entered. So I was starting to like enter the dream again because REM wasn't actually over with. I decided to see if when I woke up I could go back into REM pretty much, and sure enough I started experiencing the, I say sleep paralysis sensations, but it's really the dream forming, and so I started experiencing those sensations almost immediately after I woke up. So then I accidentally woke up at this point, and I know it says REM right here, but I actually woke up and didn't go back into a dream. I did try going back to sleep, but it probably matches the criteria of REM, but I was only in REM until this point right here. So anything after 10 wasn't actually REM like this thing implies. I was actually lying in bed thinking about stuff after I accidentally woke up from re-entering the dream. I had a minor drift of awareness as this was happening, and then I accidentally shocked myself awake from that. That's essentially what happened. So I'm going to try to avoid that in the future. But yeah, so that's an example of an inaccuracy with the sleep chart. So it was correct with, I don't know if the starting point here is correct, but I was dreaming right before that. So if this is accurate, then about, I'm guessing I got lucid at about 9:57, 9:58 maybe. And then I was looking at a cuckoo clock, and um, I was looking away, looking back, and the time kept changing. Daniel Love was saying that generally that only works with digital clocks and not analog because of evolution. But I've actually found that analog seems to change a lot more than digital, at least in my experience. I found the opposite to be true, but I would say pretty much all of that depends on the person and their expectations, stuff like that. So then I started messing around with the cuckoo clock, willing the time to change just by essentially looking at it and expecting it to change. Um, what I usually like to do is when I want to change something like that, I look at what I want to change, and then I imagine. Essentially, I look directly at it with my senses, and then I imagine that sense changing. So like, I use my imagination, but directly with my sense, if that makes sense. So, like if I wanted to make that webcam tilt up, I just imagine it tilting up while essentially directly observing it, then it should end up happening. This is like a dream control thing. I would, if you're not really a lucid dreamer, I would recommend learning how to lucid dream first, and then once you get that down, then worry about this. But what I'm talking about is what I like to call imagination through observation. You directly observe your senses, then imagine what you want to change, or you could use a dream command, like telling the object to do whatever as if it's a non-living thing. But realistically, when it comes to dream control or any of those things, it's really meant for the person to discover how that works themselves. You actually want to minimize how much research you do in the first place, because there's a lot of mistakes that I'm currently making, all because of misinformation out there. And if you avoid the misinformation from the start, then you should be able to avoid these mistakes, which is why I'm not going to talk about them, so I don't set anyone's expectations. That's why you have to be really careful with the subject. You pretty much just do it and keep things simple. That's all I'm going to say. Keep things simple. I tend to overcomplicate things, and so does all the misinformation, which is why I'm having the problems I'm currently having. So, trying to essentially unlearn those things, which is really difficult because I have a bad habit formed. Don't form those habits from the very start. Watch like Lucid Dream Portal and channels like that for a reliable source from the very start. You're really going to do yourself a huge favor. In fact, I used to have a lot more success before I even did research on it because of self-discovery. And I didn't really have much expectation to begin with, so one of the reasons why it worked so well, because I didn't really expect what I was going to do to actually work, but I also knew I was dreaming at the same time. And like if it didn't work, the form of dream control, I'd be like, oh well. But if it did, then great. So don't really set your expectations very high when it comes to this. And you'll find that you'll probably actually end up having better dream control by essentially not having high expectations. It really is a darn paradox with just about everything related to it. Because like you hear things like dream stabilization. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to move this over so I remember to change it back. When it comes to dream stabilization, for example, you actually don't really need to invest that much energy in it, because with your non-lucid dreams, you need to stabilize those dreams. No, it pretty much just happens automatically. It's really no different than a lucid dream. And when you're lucid dreaming, you don't want to invest any energy in that stuff if you don't need to while non-lucid. Invest your energy in what the dream is actually about instead. I keep forgetting this. This is one of those bad habits. So essentially, don't try to stabilize the dream. Like, just go with whatever happens and engage with the dream as much as possible, and it will not be necessary at all. So that will certainly save you a lot of hassle down the line. Don't invest really any energy in dream stabilization. And as Daniel said, the concept is actually very speculative. It's yeah, just focus on the dream. That's really the best way to stabilize it. Just focus on the dream and try to have a relatively clear mindset so you remember what you want to try and stuff like that. Or else just honestly, what you do, just do whatever you feel like doing when you realize you're dreaming. And of course, like I said, engage with the dream. Like, as long as you're focusing on there, then it will remain perfectly stable and you don't have to worry about a thing. I shouldn't have been talking about that as much as I have, but that's an example of a bad habit that I managed to form. If I would have just done that, then I would just be doing it without thinking about it. That's what you want to do. But for me, I formed a bad habit, and that bad habit kicks in and then essentially ruins the opportunity. It never existed before because of self-discovery. And if you're doing like self-discovery and looking at reliable sources, then these issues shouldn't really ever happen for you either. So anyway, ramble over. I should probably concentrate on this. So point is, the sleep chart might not be fully accurate, as I'm always saying, but neither is a heart rate is actually pretty close from my understanding, but don't assume it's 100% accurate. It's gonna be within a few. Same with the calorie counter on ellipticals and stuff like that. That's probably not gonna be 100% accurate. So yeah, just be mindful if you're wanting actual like data or whatever. So and while I'm using my Fitbit, I'm gonna use my blue light blocker, since it's really good to use if you're using electronics at night. It can definitely help with sleep. You may have heard, don't use electronics at night. One of the main reasons is the blue light that's emitted. So if you get a blue light filter, on my Mac I use night light, or else you can get like flux, I think. Or no, night shift is what it's called on Mac. Night light is what Windows uses. And same with your mobile devices, but on top of that, it can be really beneficial to have a physical filter, because screen filters are not going to be 100%, but I'm sure it'll help either way. And it might take some getting used to, but think about the benefits. So that's essentially what I do, because like all I see is everything's very yellow, which is obviously taking some getting used to, but thinking about the benefits, I really don't even care. So I barely even think about that nowadays. I'm just thinking I'm gonna be able to sleep better tonight because of this. So I think that justifies wearing it. So anyway, right, I moved the thing back without actually changing the screen. Boy, that's going to defeat the whole purpose. So essentially, so my main point was trying to get this set up live. I think this will do what I want. Oh, great. So at about, let me see if I can find exactly where it was. Let's see, the average was 60 right there. So I'm looking for averages above 61 essentially, like that 67 that you can see. So if it's above resting heart rate, the average, I'm going to assume that it's REM. And I don't know if this chart is even accurate, but assuming it is, that 329, I believe that's what time No, that's 350. Yeah, like 350-ish. So was I in REM at 350 according to that? This is after the REM supposedly, but again, I don't know for sure if this is accurate, so relying on this and getting false data really isn't a great thing. So if I keep looking, there was only a couple points where it was above the resting heart rate, and it was just kind of hard to tell what was going on overall. So yeah, I just don't really like the way it's collecting data at the moment. But as you can see, there's some points where there's motion, sometimes it takes the average, sometimes it doesn't, and all of those were below my resting heart rate, so I don't really care about what's going on there. And of course, mind you, the ultimate goal is to like try to map out REM, and this really doesn't do that. So so even later on, like when it shows REM on here, it might not even really mean anything until like, let's say 20 minutes into it. And that's not really what I want. In fact, I want to be able to have it wake me up right after. So, and I do kind of want to have it happen within like 5 minutes and stuff. And I want to like make sure that I don't really get any false alarms either, because I don't want to disrupt the dream or anything like that. Like for example, in theory, this is like a 41-minute dream, and who knows if that was actually accurate. I know that my dream recall wasn't that great right there, and mind you, I pretty much pulled an all-nighter last night, so I'm sure I had some critical REM to catch up on, which is essentially where the dreaming's happening. And I do remember waking up right here, and then I remember waking up again just a little bit after, and I'm like, I think I just dreamt a little bit more. And according to this chart, it would imply that I have. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So, yeah, anyway, so, let me think. Yeah, so, let me explain what I'm actually gonna do. So, since that data is like really hard to look at overall, let me get it back on this one. I was hoping to have it resume where I left off on that video, but I can't do that. That's unfortunate. So, anyway, so what am I going to do exactly? Well, what I was thinking of doing is only have it average if it's greater than like 150, not even if it's greater than 0 or anything like that. If it's like greater than 150, collect motion. If it's greater than 0 but less than that, have it not do anything at all. And of course, as you can see, I'm kind of changing how it's collecting data based on data that I'm analyzing. That's why there's so many iterations, because oftentimes it's not going to do exactly what I think it's going to do. And data collection can, in general, be an iterative process from my understanding. And that's exactly what I'm trying to show here. The only difference is you're learning as I'm learning. Like, I'm discovering this as well, essentially. So how am I going to tweak it? Well, I was thinking maybe I've got it all written on my whiteboard over here. So essentially I was thinking it would only average if the motion is greater than 150. However, if it detects, or if it thinks that I might be in REM then I eventually wanted to like get the total amount of REM essentially. Like I'm gonna want to total that up. So essentially, like every time the motion is 100 greater than 150, then it would get the average. However, if it thinks I'm in REM, in other words, if the heart rate, the average heart rate that I figured out is greater than the resting heart rate, then every 5 minutes I'm going to have it get the average, regardless of whether there's any motion. Regardless of the motion, I'm going to have it get it every 5 minutes. And until it gets it where it's below the resting heart rate, I'm going to assume that REM is still occurring. Because I do want it to like get it have it check every 5 minutes. But only when it thinks it's in REM, then I'll check, could it still be in REM? I'm not gonna like program actual stuff related to REM. However, if the average is above the resting heart rate, then I'm gonna have it disregard motion for a while, collect data every 5 minutes, and the moment it collects data and it's below the resting heart rate, I'm gonna have it assume that REM is over with, and then motion will become relevant again. That's essentially what I'm gonna do. So let me make sure that this stream is actually working yet. Yeah, it is. So that's essentially what I'm going to do. Motion is only relevant when I'm not in REM. It would collect data, it would get an average every time the heart rate is greater than 150. However, if that average is above my resting heart rate, which I'm going to temporarily program for now, then it'll start doing it specifically every 5 minutes regardless of motion. I think that's what I'm going to do. And that may not be the perfect approach either, but I'm essentially doing data collection with trial and error. That's what's going on right now. So does that make sense? Essentially, if the heart rate is above the resting heart rate, then every 5 minutes. Otherwise, every time the motion is greater than 150. Because the 300 seemed a little bit high in some cases. I think 150 would be a decent compromise. So, I'm just going to give that a shot. May not be perfect, but I'm kind of hoping that it works decent tonight. I'm going to try to pay attention to when I actually know I woke up from a dream tomorrow. I want to pay attention to that so that I can confirm like accuracy on here, for example, and see if there actually is a correlation. What I would like is, if it's trying to get an estimate, to be able to do it within 5 minutes. That's what I would like it to be able to do. So what I may end up doing is, because when it does wake me up, I might want to have an idea on how soon things happened exactly. Like how soon it thinks I was probably in REM and whatnot. So in that case, I would maybe have it still log some data so I can like see what the heart rate was if I want to check it. However, the other thing is, it's kind of annoying being in the app because I often want to access a different app like my alarm, and if I close off the app, all the data is going to be gone. So I may want to look into backgrounding and just kind of see, because I don't want it to background for too long, but I want to be able to easily go back into the app. So and then if I want to actually restart the app at will, essentially, but that's only applicable to some of the other Fitbit apps I've made. Sometimes I might want to be able to restart that for one reason or another. That's one of the only reasons I'm not doing the backgrounding right now. I might want to be able to easily restart it like I can right now. But that may not really be the case for this app, or else if I can figure out the multiple screens thing where the app can have multiple screens where I can enter information, I might make it so you can easily restart it from there. Because I've always wanted to be able to do multiple screens. I've got scrolling accomplished. To be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if multiple screens could easily be accomplished just by messing with X, the X variable, instead of Y like we're doing with the height. That might work. Then I'd have to figure out some sort of scrolling mechanism. I'm going to do some research on that before doing anything like that. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So, let's get this, because I wasn't even originally planning on live streaming today. What I'm hoping is that the data collection works the way I want to tonight, because then tomorrow I can start implementing time ranges, like not just this. I'm going to have it do time ranges instead, like from 3:35, like on here. OBS has to be in focus for me to do the scene switch, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. I don't think it used to need that, but I am going to try upgrading Mac OS and see if that fixes it. Because I would like to be able to switch the scene. That's one of the whole reasons I am using this controller right now, so I can wirelessly switch the scenes. I happen to have this, and I like using it with the Intel Nook and stuff. So, yeah, benefit is I could go all the way over here, then switch it essentially. That's one of the reasons why I like doing that. I just got a notification about one of my friends on Steam is playing something. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want them to be immortalized in this video without their permission, although they are anonymously immortalized at this point. But trust me, that's better than being like not anonymously mortified and without permission, essentially. So anyways, so let's see, my point is yeah, so the time range thing. So I wanted to be able to, instead of having a list of the sensor data, I wanted to have a list of all the time ranges. So for example, this sleep chart, that essentially says from like 329 to 348. And this is probably not going to be entirely accurate, but I would like to get it to do that, because if that actually works reasonably well and it matches stuff reasonably well, like with, of course, wake up time being confirmed, what I'm really going to be paying attention to, not the overall time range, but when it thinks it ended. What I would like is for it to be within 5 minutes. It might actually end up being within 10 minutes instead, just because if I wake up like and it does it 3 minutes later, the average still suggests that I'm in a dream. That's gonna throw it off a little bit. But I think for now, I'm actually gonna pay attention to how much motion is happening when I do actually wake up. Because, of course, sometimes it could be a couple hundred motion and I'm not awake as far as I can remember. Those aren't times that I ever want to target. But yeah, the end time is what I want to pay attention to. How close is that to when I confirm I actually wake up? If it's close, then it's going to accomplish what I want. Now, I guess an exception to that rule would be this right here. Right there, I was supposedly not in REM, and then 4 minutes later I somehow re-entered. Not consciously or anything. Like right here, for example, I almost entered consciously, and it would be interesting if I did succeed, would I have been in the dream for like 28 minutes? Would I have had a lucid dream for 28 minutes had I been successful with that today? If so, then I probably could have had a pretty epic lucid dream today besides the one I had before all that happened. That only lasted a couple minutes, and I don't even know why I woke up exactly. Um, I think it's because my sleep cycle's kind of mixed up from those bedtimes and some of my other bedtimes. It just kind of mixed up that REM may unexpectedly end. But if it's not actually complete, then I could easily go back into it. This is where there's a technique known as dream exit induced lucid dream. I'm not really going to explain the whole technique because I don't remember the exact steps or anything, but it's called DEILD, or I think it's pronounced DEILD. It's personally, I hate pronouncing that name and that whole acronym. It's the whole IELD thing. It's kind of amazing how that all got started, but essentially DEILD is if you wake up from a dream like abruptly and you're not technically done with it yet, then you can very quickly re-enter the dream. Like let's say something crazy happened, like maybe you were up on a building and you fell down and woke up because you hit the ground in the dream. That may not have been the natural ending of the dream. So in that case, essentially I would look up the actual method, but I think more or less by lying still, you can actually pretty quickly re-enter the dream. You're probably going to notice sleep paralysis. That's essentially what happened with me today. And then essentially you just consciously go into the dream. You just allow everything that's happening to occur and assume that everything that's happening is perfectly natural. Because the only difference is you're awake as this is happening. Normally it happens when you're asleep. So you're probably not familiar with it, but it always does happen. So the only difference is you're awake. So just allow things to happen and just make sure everything feels natural, and next thing you know, you should find yourself in a dream again, except hopefully you realize you're dreaming. Don't be fooled by a false awakening where you think you actually woke up from it, but you actually entered the dream and dreamt about waking up. Don't be fooled by that, because I've gotten fooled by that quite a few times this year myself, and I'm telling you, if you're gullible, you're gonna run into that issue. So essentially, in general, when you wake up, don't always assume that you actually woke up, especially if you were in a lucid dream prior to it. Like, make sure you actually woke up with a reality test. That's one of the things that they're for, and that can help prevent that from occurring. What's my original point? Well, yeah, so the whole time range thing, I'm going to see how close that ends up becoming, and if it comes close enough, then after it shows the time ranges, then these iterations will be done. This is iteration 4, then all of a sudden we'll be in the iteration where I'm actually programming an alarm to do what I want to do, assuming that it seems to be accurate enough. Like every point the resting heart rate is above whatever, then I'm going to see if that actually correlates with the end. And if it does, well then, guess what? That's when I would normally want it to go off. If it seems reliable enough, then I can program an actual alarm, and essentially it would go off after I wake up from a dream, but the time range can be like very vast. Like if I want to wake up sometime after 6, what if I want to naturally wake up sometime between 6 to 8, or if I want to assume that that's the end of the REM cycle and try lucid dreaming. From essentially naturally waking up, the alarm would essentially just go off right after I wake up from a dream. So That's essentially what I would ultimately use it for. But if I want to, with the smart alarm feature that most Fitbits I believe now have, um, see they have a smart wake. Essentially, if it detects I'm awake within that time range, it'll go off then instead of the original time. And if I'm not awake at all, it'll go off at the original time. And that can have less disruption on sleep, and you can wake up more naturally. Preferably, you should be able to wake up without an alarm in the first place, but it would make sense for the alarm to go off when you naturally wake up, right? Then you can wake up more naturally. And if you happen to wake up before the actual set alarm goes off, you could technically snooze if you want. Still, you would have extra time to snooze or whatever. Or since I'm a huge victim of snoozing myself, I generally wouldn't recommend doing that, especially if you don't already. But one way that I like to sometimes work around it is get up and do something basic with getting ready in the morning, like brushing your teeth or something like that, and then go back to bed for a little bit. Then it might be a little bit easier to get up, and getting out of bed is still going to be kind of hard, but knowing that you can very quickly go back in should make it easier to get up. You're not actually getting up for the day, and knowing that might make it easier to get up in that moment. Then when you actually get up, you'll probably be more awake in that situation. So hopefully that would help in that situation, because I'm not a morning person, and I would seriously snooze my alarm for 3 hours past when I normally have to get up if I could. Like, if I could get up at 1 p.m., I probably would. But maybe even beyond that, honestly. So there's rarely ever a morning where I actually want to get up, even if I sleep in for a really long time. But getting up naturally versus like in the middle of a dream or in the middle of deep sleep down here, not great. But if you happen to set, you might actually notice on some days that, especially if your bedtime isn't super consistent, you might notice that some days it happen to be easier to get up than others. And of course, there's several factors that can play into that, but one of them could be the fact that it woke you up in light sleep or awake instead of like REM or deep sleep. So if you feel really groggy from the alarm waking you up, chances are you're either in deep sleep or REM. But if you woke up in light sleep or awake, it could still have an effect, but it might not be nearly as bad. So if you ever wake up on some days where you're not as tired and you're wondering like how's that possible, even though the time's pretty much the same, chances are it's the stage of sleep that you happen to be in. Waking up from some stages of sleep are much easier than others. So yeah, so you can imagine that this smart wake feature has a 30-minute time range. I can't increase that time range, which is what I want to do, because the sleep schedule for me could vary a lot where I happen to be in sleep. But rather than just waking up at the time set, if I happen to be in one of those two stages before, preferably awake, then it would probably make more sense for it to go off then. Even though it's earlier, it's more natural, and therefore it should have less of an effect. It still has a pretty strong effect for me sometimes, but it is actually still quite a bit less. Some people who can get up easy in the morning might have like a 0 to let's say 5% impact. That's just a made up scale. Then some people have like 100% impact. By impact, I mean like not wanting to get up and feeling super groggy, that kind of thing. And if 100% impact is like the worst version of it, where you just want to completely destroy your alarm clock altogether, that's like 100%. 0% is where you actually feel like getting up and you feel great. You just want to look at the sunshine and it's a beautiful day. That kind of attitude, that's like the 0% impact. 100% impact of waking up is where you just want to destroy your effing alarm. Um, so, but if you get if I were to wake up from my deep sleeper realm, I'm probably gonna have like 80% of this impact, so to speak. But if I wake up naturally, it's probably gonna be maybe 50 or a little bit lower. Does that make sense? It's gonna be quite a bit better. Like that impact of how I feel when waking up is lower in this scale that I made up is better. 0% is you absolutely want to get up. Your serotonin levels are high or something like that. Or you're the exact opposite with 100%. I might be at like 25 to 50% with. Actually, it could be 0 to 50% if it's light sleep or awake. If it's awake, it might actually be like 0 to 25%, maybe 25 to 50 with light sleep. I don't know. I'm making up these numbers, but I hope that makes sense. If you wake up in one of those later stages of sleep, it's going to be easier pretty much no matter how tired you are in general. Now, getting up yesterday when I pulled the all-nighter was actually much easier than normal because it was probably more of a nap than an actual night's sleep. So, yeah, today I wasn't super tired, but I think that's only because I was in bed for like over 9 hours. So I think that's one of the only reasons I wasn't super tired. Oh, then of course I was re-entering the dream and accidentally woke up from that. Whenever I accidentally wake up from the dream forming, I'm not nearly as tired as I'm just less tired. It's harder to fall asleep when that occurs for me. So that's one of the reasons why getting up today wasn't that bad, because I technically naturally woke up from failing to re-enter a dream, and thus it felt a little more natural. So yeah, anyway, we should really get to the programming, because I thought this would be one of those short live streams. Whenever I think it's going to be short, the opposite happens. Why? Because I go into rambling mode. So let's make that change. So don't worry, that's the screen. Oh dear, the bitrate was just really low right now. The bitrate was actually pretty low. It seems to be okay now. So this is the screen, right? So what I would like to do, of course, all that, the 2.5 hour delay works pretty well. I'm not going to benefit from the first 2.5 hours, let's face it. So I'm just skipping past that. So we've added this ternary operator. However, I'm going to change the logic around a little bit. I think I have this code stored on GitHub. Yeah, this was from yesterday's live stream. It's got the ternary operator and everything right there. So I can always reference this code if I need to go back. Having a lot of fail safes can be really beneficial. Like if you make a major change to the code, having a copy of the original version in case it doesn't work out is really beneficial. So I'm going to change this so if total is greater than 150, I don't think I'm going to have it be inclusive. I'm almost tempted to do 200, but if I want to compromise again, I could go with 175. I'm just going to leave it like this and not overthink it. So if the total is greater than 150, then I think I'll just get the average heart rate. I'll just get the average heart rate right here. But then I check to see if it's greater than the resting heart rate. So I think I want to create a new variable called resting equals, I'm just going to put 61 for right now because that's, according to the Fitbit, that's what it is at the moment. It's using some sort of algorithm to calculate it, I believe, and since the dreaming, like my resting heart or my heart rate seems to always be lower than that, usually if I'm not dreaming, so I figure if it's anywhere above that, then it probably is a dream. Like when I was 67, which is like 6 above right now, I think it was correct at the time. Or else it was just when the dream ended. That's where it's gonna be a couple minutes off, but that's the best I'm gonna be able to do with this kind of thing. When that EEG device comes out on the market, I think it might have some sort of alarm thing, but I don't really know a lot about that device. It's understandable that Daniel wouldn't want to really talk about that too much, especially since he and a couple other testers are really testing it in prototype at the moment. But I would think that would be able to figure out everything on the spot. Like, I guarantee you that thing probably wouldn't report around past 10. Although I did go back to sleep for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't dreaming. In fact, when I had a minor drift, I felt that same shock as I had when I actually woke up. So that was probably, yeah, that wouldn't be happening in a dream. Unless I happen to be dreaming about sleeping and all this is emulated, but I don't think that's what was occurring. So I realized that I was so busy today. I haven't been doing very many reality tests today, and I just realized I can't even remember exactly when I last did it. There's a fail in my retrospective memory. So one of the tests I like to do is to think about how I got here. Think about like what I've been doing before and is it dreamlike, that kind of thing. In fact, with the binary technique, I actually forgot to do that right after I woke up. I would recommend watching Daniel Love's video on the binary technique if you want a lucid dream portal binary technique. I'd recommend watching that video if you want to learn about the binary technique, but I kind of forgot to do it right after I got out of bed because things are just a little bit crazy at the moment, but I really shouldn't be making excuses like that. So I did a reality test, realized I forgot it, and I figure, today it's probably not a great day to rely on it, but if I think I'm awake each time I do it, and there's quite a bit of space in between, I'm probably awake. I think I probably am awake. I was also doing that digital clock one. I only have an analog clock out there, like I did today, essentially. But digital clocks, they have done some glitching as well. Like the time on my phone might be 2 hours off from my alarm clock, for example. I've had that happen in a recent dialed. As a matter of fact, yeah, today I had it dialed and then I almost re-entered the dream. the day that I was just thinking of just now was like a month or two ago. The exact same thing happened. I had it dialed, then I woke up, and then I almost re-entered the dream. It happened that day as well. Um, but I also had a recent one where I almost had a false awakening. But when I looked at my alarm clock, the text is normally red. But in the dream, the hour was pink and the minute was red. So I'm like, false awakening. I'm still dreaming. So then I got out of bed, even though it was from the dream. And yeah, because I knew I was still dreaming yet. So anyway, let's try to get this working. So the motion is greater than 150, so we'll get the average heart rate. And I do want it to clear regardless. And it still has the average heart rate. Yeah. So if I write, so this is not an interval. It's being triggered by this. If the total is greater than 150, how am I going to do this? Because if it's in realm, I just want to do an interval instead of that. I think I might just do like a boolean. So like is realm equals false. And then if the total is greater than 150 and not is realm. So like if rem is false or is rem is false, then don't do that. But so then this returns 0. Is that even the right place for it? Let's do an else if. Yeah, else if is rem. Actually, we don't need to do that. I'm just gonna trigger the interval. Yeah, I'll just have the interval run. What I might end up doing is going like this. So I'll do an else with this. It'll return 0, but I think what I'll probably do is have a function for, because I'm going to be doing an interval every 5 minutes, and it makes sense for me to have a function for that. It's unfortunate that I can't just do like set interval, then do an anonymous function. Like where I just put the function right here. Like what do I want to do? And I want to do it every 10 seconds. It's too bad I can't do that, I don't think. I've tried it and it didn't work. But also, yeah, I'm just going to do a function. I think I did try that at one point, an anonymous function, but that didn't really work. So what I'm going to do instead is function get realm. Like essentially that's what happens. So I'm going to create a interval for that. So let's rem interval equal that. Oh, I see. I always, if there's 2 words that I do with camel case right here, I always like to have these first and second words flipped around with the variable for this, and then the function. I always like to flip them around. Because like time update and then update time, they're flipped around. Start, delay, delay, start. That's just the way I've been doing it. But here, I'm not going to be doing that with the function name. What did I call it? Get rum. So that's the function that'll trigger with this interval. Oh, and actually, we're not initializing it yet. So I'm going to cut this. I think I pressed the right shortcut. So here we're going to say int rem equals set interval get rem, and that'll run every 5 minutes. But the thing is, I want it to run right away right here, I think. Oh, so what makes it true? I kind of don't even want to do that on an else. But I don't want this return 0 to happen either. I almost want to have a separate if statement altogether. And not is rem. Well, I suppose the if statement could be within here. Yeah, that would work. Well, let's make the if statement. So if average HR, because that is an integer. So if average HR is greater than resting, is that what I called it? You know, there's a whole bunch of variables. It's like what's what. Some of these variables that I'm not using right now, I may end up using again, so I may as well leave it. Now, I just remember seeing a function the other day with a for loop that, like this, I'm not going to be using this anymore. I can get rid of that. Resting. And who knows, the resting may fluctuate, it depends. So, I would have to go to this program to change it, but that's a lot faster than trying to design a user interface on here than do that. Also, I would want to have the data persistent, like where it stores it, so I don't have to keep re-entering it every time. The other annoying thing is, in order to actually store data on here, like real data, it needs to access my phone. And I've had an app with a glitch where the only reason it glitched is because the connection to the phone was just not great. That was glitchy overall, like the connection. So like if I change some data, if I change the setting, for example, that was normally stored on the phone or the companion, then all of a sudden it would change back when it resynchronized with the companion, and it often wouldn't change the new setting that I just set. It would often keep overwriting with the old one that was saved. I don't know if this Fitbit would do that, but my Ionic was doing that. And that's one of the cons with the companion. Stuff like that can very easily happen. I think Fitbit's probably more on the fitness side than the technology side, to be honest with you. Like, I think Apple, I don't have an Apple one, but I'm sure it would do better when it comes to that. So, yeah, so if average HR ends up being greater than the resting, then ISREM will become true. I know that's for sure going to happen. See, the other thing with programming this is I have to actually make sure that the changes I make end up working. So I'm going to start the interval. And I want it to do it every 5 minutes. However, I want it to, no, I don't need it to do something right at the beginning. If I did, then I probably would have just set this to 0 or some really low number, then reset it in here. But then I'd be doing that every time practically. That's not what I want. Fortunately, I do want it to wait 5 minutes before it first runs. So, 5 minutes, that's equivalent to, so 60,000 is 1 minute. So that'd be 300,000. So in 5 minutes, it's going to get the heart rate again. And chances are, if that's still greater than the resting heart rate, then I'll have to keep going. If it's not, then that's when I want it to stop doing this. Does that make sense? Semicolon. Sometimes there is code that I've copied and pasted, like this sort array. Well, actually that does have a semicolon, but some of this doesn't. Like the HTML type stuff doesn't. So let's see here. I think I can actually leave this or bring it back to how it was. Because, well, do I want it to return 0? Yeah, I just want there to be something. So this run becomes true. This will only run if it's false. Oh, so we gotta remember to still do this. I'm going to be duplicating my code, which I don't love, but that's what I'm going to be doing. So is run then becomes true. That'll prevent this from running. And this return, is that one of the actual lines of code? Well, see, I'm still gonna want the number to appear right there like it normally does. How do I do this? So I get that. Still wanted to get the average heart rate. Wait, so yeah, this still runs regardless. But every time it runs, shoot. How do I still do this with average heart rate? Because get rem is what's going to be triggering now. And it's all going to be based on, I'm not going to be able to return anything. Because it's triggered by this function. I'm running into a little bit of a logical issue here. So I wanted to get the average heart rate because, yeah, it'll run every 5 minutes, but it still collects the average by running this function with its normal interval. I'm sure they'll be in sync with each other. I'm almost tempted to like not have this be an interval just because, and have some sort of function within here where I can get the actual number. So get REM, I'm really just getting that average heart rate. That's all I'm doing, right? So every time this runs, then the average heart rate still occurs. Maybe this doesn't have to return anything. But then this return won't occur. That's the problem. Average heart rate triggers right there. How do I get the number to feed through to there? I have to think about this here. Now I'm like brain fried just about. I really had a bunch of people in the chat that could help me out right now. But this is good experience, I guess. We're all learning stuff here. And when I say both, I mean all of you guys that are watching. But this is more of a self-documentation thing in general. I just, I'm very tempted to like separate this out between is REM being true and false. But then see, once again, I'm calling this function, which is, I can't call that function because it's being triggered by the interval. It's not like int REM becomes the result. I don't think. And of course, if I run average heart rate, then suddenly it'll add another data point and stuff. Otherwise, it would just skip down to the bottom. Kind of tempted to do like an is or not is REM. But then all of a sudden this won't do its original thing like it is right now. I almost want to do this when it's not REM. I'm almost tempted to have a separate function. But then again, I'm going to have to call different ones depending on which thing I'm doing. I'm just trying to see if I could get it to all work within this one function. I don't want it to like suddenly invoke another data collection. I got rid of the ternary operator, right? What would end up happening if I just called this average heart rate again? It would certainly add another data point, but oh, then how do I detect when I'm out of REM? Because then this is no longer triggering until I'm out. So like if boy, if I could return through the get REM function, that would sure be nice. But because I'm using an interval through it, I can't necessarily do that. This is triggering the get heart rate type interval. I'm tempted to pass through some sort of number, and suddenly if it's less than, still kind of want it to go below, not do less than or equal to, then is REM equals false and clear interval int REM. But that still doesn't mean we have our number. That's my problem with else if is REM. See, and I kind of want it to coincide with when this occurs. That's the thing. Well, if it is REM, then I could still have it return this, I guess. Because, yeah, it'll be either 0 or how do I actually have it end up being 0 or this? Boy, I'm like brain fried all of a sudden. This is really tricky. I could do an else if right here, like else if is REM, then return average HR, but that should I be doing a ternary operator here? But if so, then how's that gonna work? Would HR index be a way to be able to tell whether I should do it or not? kind of tempted to use the ternary operator again. So HR index like every 5 minutes. The HR index will be 9, I think, or 10. See, I don't know. This is something I could probably test in the simulator. See, I want to return 0 if it's not what I'm, or if it's not like getting this. Do I need another Boolean? So do I want to be able to say like collected equals, yeah, collected equals true every time that runs? Yeah, well, and collected. Before I forget, I better declare it. Is that what I'm looking for? So, if it is rem and it's collected, then I also want to return the average heart rate. But then that's where I want it to become false. So we got the end bracket already. Is that the solution? I'm gonna simulate. I think I should be able to use a Fitbit simulator to test this. Yeah. Let me go through the logic. Boy, if you notice that I'm staring a lot, it's because my brain is fried and I literally want to do nothing right now. Like, I literally feel like doing nothing right now. If you notice me doing something, I'm doing it exactly because I want to do it. So if I'm like staring a lot, that's mainly because I feel like doing nothing. I'm going to do the simulator, but let me go through the logic real quickly first. I apologize, this is a little bit of a pain, but like if you're watching the live stream afterwards, you can always fast forward to when I end up figuring stuff out. And you can tell based on when I actually start typing. So oh, so yeah, we're gonna go through the logic. So it's gonna collect the heart rate every 30 seconds regardless, but only if it's not REM supposedly. Then we're gonna get the average, and if that average happens to be greater than resting when it isn't REM, then it becomes REM, and the interval begins. So then all of a sudden, when it is REM, all of this skips, and so the interval will run. So that'll run when the data has been collected. I'm just a little worried that it's going to be out of sync. And then that could throw the timing off a little bit. Like if that 5 minutes doesn't perfectly time with this, right? Well, let's try it in the simulator. That's the thing. We can technically simulate this because I can mess with the heart rate right here and of course get logged data. So I can technically mess with it right now. It's just having to wait 5 minutes for it to get out. I can change that though. Change it to like seconds. Usually if there's anything involving several minutes, I tend to change it to that same thing but in seconds when testing. So yeah, once it's collected, then it's no longer collected, and then it still does end up returning the whole average. But it starts collecting right there. Boy, I didn't really think it would be this complicated. I mean, it's probably not even complicated, it's just kind of hard to get my head around this right now. Not particularly complicated, but yeah. So it'll still return the average heart rate, and then if none of it is true, like if it's not doing this and it's REM, then it's 0, I think. So when that interval runs, even if they don't coincide, I'm kind of writing this as if this interval coincides with when this is going to run. They might not. So hopefully that doesn't screw up any potential averages. I'm just going to have to try it tonight, hope for... Oh, I can use a simulator right now. So yeah, so here it's still going to get the average and then clear it out, because that's what I always want to have happen when it's getting the average. And there's going to be several data points because this was still run regardless. Glad I actually put this on the top because the logic that I'm using now, I don't even have to change this around. I probably would otherwise. So clear it out. And then if it's all of a sudden less than the resting heart rate, then I'm just going to have it assume that I'm out of REM. So this will no longer keep triggering because I cleared the interval. So once I set the interval, it'll keep going forever until specified otherwise. I think that makes sense. So that's normally 5 minutes. I'm putting that there because I need to change it. So I want that to be 5 seconds now. Will that just work? Well, I am going to have to run this. And that'll be 1 second. And before I forget, I'm going to want to take this out. I'm going to add all these slashes to here as well, because I got to remember to change that back. I'm just adding all those slashes because I need to change it back by the time I use this program for real. So as you can see, I modified the program just so I can test it out. So here I could use the simulator. Of course, it simulates a companion too, which is pretty cool. So hopefully not much of a connection issue occurs. So right there, it's, then the motion, that's something we can't simulate. I won't be able to simulate the motion. I don't believe. Oh, I can. Well, I'm getting this like every second, so the gyroscope does always need to be active. I was hoping I could do something with the gyroscope on here. Well, I do have my email on my GitHub, so yeah, it's already out there technically. Boy, it's too bad that I can't simulate movement. It really is. Kind of tempted to add a button down here like I have in the other app. I think I'm going to pull up my other app. Oh, why did I quit that? Oh, either way, I think I'm going to pull up my other app because I do have another one. Yeah, let me just real quickly find it. Where I've added buttons and stuff. I don't know if I want to like have that code public right now. But I will add what I need to, like that, and then what else do I need? So get element by ID. Don't worry, I'll show you exactly what I am adding. So this is stuff I'm adding from a different app. So then, okay, so then I have this event listener for when the button is pressed. And I'm not going to want it to be a toggle. Yeah, I don't want to like program any toggling right now. No, I could. I think it would be useful to show you toggling. So, an event listener for when I click the button. I'll put that down here. And then, so the button being clicked is pretty much all there is to it, right? I think so. Yeah, okay. Might forget that the remote was over there. So essentially what I added was in the index.view, I am going to have to remember to update that now. Index.view is going to have to get updated. I'll add that to today's entry. I'll put the whole resources folder in there because there is now a difference. It's just that I don't usually change it much. So this is a button element, and bottom left, it means it'll be a bottom left, not going to be in the middle, but it'll do the trick as far as I'm concerned. Then we define the button right here, the get element by ID. It just has to match this ID right there. And then essentially there will be an event listener for the button click. So when the button is pressed, this code will trigger right here. And what I essentially want to have happen is I want it to like have the motion greater than that criteria. So right here is like if total is greater than 150, then I suppose I could just add 150. No, I'm going to set the total equal to, so I got to change this back as well. So I'm going to look for long comments because those are things I'm going to have to change back in the end. So the total if I can even think right now. So since total won't ever change as far as I'm concerned right now, total equals, so it has to be greater than 150. Yeah, I think so. So I'll just make it like 350 or something. So when I click the button, total will become 350, but I want to toggle it. So I'll have a variable like let movement equal 1, and I'll have it toggle between 1 and -1. That's how I'm going to toggle the button. It'll keep switching between those two. So what did I call that? So movement equals, I'm just going to set it to -1 for right now because of how I'm going to do this toggle. So essentially movement times equals -1. Then it'll go between -1 and 1 every time it does that. And then I can check if this would be a great place for a ternary operator. So if total equals movement equals 1, then it'll be 350, otherwise 0. That's our toggle. So the button will toggle whether there's movement or not. It'll be fake, but it'll be happening. So that would be a way to simulate movement. So let's try that once. I don't know if it's going to work, but okay, so line 134. I think I might need parentheses right there, maybe. Oh, this is supposed to be a question mark. That's how the ternary operator is supposed to work. Wouldn't hurt to have that in parentheses for now, though. So, oh, the button's not appearing. I wonder why. Cannot find symbol text button in button 1. I'm going to have to look at that other program and see if there's anything I may have forgotten. Because I might need something else. I don't see anything else in the index.view that I would be missing. So the error is cannot find symbol hashtag text button. Let's see if I can find anything regarding that. There doesn't appear to be anything. So button 1 So I define button 1 just like normal. Equals button dash 1. And that should be exactly how it's supposed to be. Is it the simulator that's giving us a problem? There's no chance that it's because there has to be a second button, is there? I'll add the button 2 because this app was meant to have 4 buttons at once. So const button 2 equals get element by ID 2. Cannot find attribute href in button 1. Yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing differently. Hey, how about if I I'll try this app that I know works. I'm gonna try this other app that I know actually works and see if the simulator works with that before going any further. So I'm just loading the simulator right now. I know I'm not showing the screen, but I just don't want to risk revealing something in this other program. The buttons work perfectly fine in this copy. Suppose I could show that for a second. See, I got buttons working perfectly fine right here. So that works okay. But this other app isn't working for some reason. Oh, because I have to add something to a different file. The widget.defs. I do have to add something to there. Yeah, so this I can show. So in the widget.defs, I need this. This is how you import stuff with. That's why. So I'm just going to take out button 2. And then get rid of that. Yeah, I just forgot to import it essentially, but I have to import within the HTML essentially instead of JavaScript. Okay, so I think it should work now. I just forgot one of the widget things. It's still not showing up though. I'm not getting any error, but oh. Yeah, it's working though. See how it was 350? It's 350 when I click on it. Wait. Why does it become 0 afterwards? So I thought it was supposed to be a toggle. So movement times equals -1 each time we click the button. and this wouldn't be running over and over again. So I don't really see why. I don't see why it's becoming 0 again. I bet it's resetting somewhere else. Like clear totals, yeah, that's why. Clear totals is essentially resetting it to 0. Yeah, that's why. So this we're gonna have to remember to change back as well. So yeah, totals just so we have a button working even though we can't visually see it. It still works. So that's all I care about. So essentially I can click here. Suddenly we have 350 for the motion. I click here, we're back to 0 because it toggled. So now I can simulate the heart rate being greater. So let's say motion is so heart rate's all of a sudden 75. Oh, perfect. But I wanted to do it every 10, not 5. But yeah, see how it's getting the average every 5? I mean, see how it's getting the average? See, I could go like this. Then the average will be the actual average. Now it's the real average. That is technically working the way I want. It's just that I'm glad I tested it because it's doing it every 5. Oh. Because it's every 5 seconds, so it would normally be like every 5 minutes. Right. So technically this will make it 10. But yeah, when we have this at 300,000, then it will be the right amount. So now we're supposedly in REM. So 27, yep, that's 10. So it's getting the average at 10. So that is working the way I want. But then all of a sudden when the average goes below, so it's collected the average. And let's say it suddenly goes below right there. Still collects. But then here, I don't think it's going to collect anymore. Yeah, now it's no longer collecting. I believe that is working the exact way I wanted it to, so essentially it's not gonna if the motion is 350 or greater, it'll collect, which I'm okay with that, but I just don't want that to occur unless Yeah, so if I'm in REM, yeah, so essentially if I'm in REM, then it'll do it specifically every 5 minutes. And I think it'll be regardless of motion, right? Oh, yeah, it's doing it again. So even if there is motion, it still behaves exactly the same, right? Excellent. This went on a lot longer than I was hoping, but I do think it's behaving how I want. Um, yeah. So I think I like it. Um, so since it works, I'm gonna take the button out. And I may not end up deleting it altogether. I'm just gonna comment it all out, I think. So comment that out. And then this event, I'll comment it out in case you guys wanted to mess with this at all. Like, because I'm storing each version, or in case I want to be able to again, technically. I just have to uncomment this. So, yeah, then here, I just have to comment this. I forget how you comment things in HTML, so that's how you do it, I guess. And then here, same thing. Just for like battery saving or whatever. So now let's get everything changed back to how we want. So I'm just going to comment that out. This is from a while ago, not now. Same with that. That's going to be something we will use eventually. So I'm just kind of going through what has to get changed back. We definitely want to add that back. Then we want total to keep resetting. So you kind of saw how I made things work with the simulator. Then we got to add this back. Then this becomes 300,000. And in theory, that should be it. Just looking for comments I could have missed. In theory, I think it should work now. Oh, and then we do want to remember to get rid of this. I think that would be everything. So now I'm going to deploy it to my actual Fitbit so that I can actually use it tonight. Got a little bit later than I was hoping. I was kind of hoping this would be like a quick 10-minute thing, but clearly that didn't happen. More like 2 hours. Well, not quite 2 hours, but heading there. So now I'm connecting the Fitbit to the developer bridge. You just have to set up Wi-Fi on the app and go to Fitbit Studio on your account. Then you'll get the option on the Fitbit. It's in the main settings, I think. There's a developer bridge option in the main settings screen if you go to Fitbit Studio on your account and you synchronize your Fitbit. Assuming your Fitbit supports development, first of all. My second Fitbit failed, and I was hoping that I would be able to get another one that supports development. And fortunately, this one does. So I think it just timed out right there. That's going to happen with inconsistent connections. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can really do about that. So the button really isn't there, as far as I'm aware, so I think that's it. So I will put this current version of the code on GitHub. If you want to mess around with the button, then find the code correlating with that, which is this, and a widget.defs. So those four things, uncomment them, and you'll have a button yourself. And it took me a little while to figure that out, but I wanted to be able to use buttons for the longest time and couldn't. So I finally ended up doing research on it and got it working, so that was pretty exciting. The only thing is I don't know how to like make them go away when I'm done with them, but I'm not concerned about that at the moment. I essentially made it so that if I didn't want to bump it, it wouldn't be clickable. Essentially, that's what I did in my other app. So I think I'm going to wrap this up for once. So I think that is actually going to be it. So there we go. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to let me know. I'll try to get to you as soon as possible. And if the data collection works the way I hope it does, I will be doing another one of these tomorrow. And we'll try to get it so that it logs time ranges and nothing more than that, hopefully. I think I might still do... no, I'm not going to do like average... I'll decide tomorrow. Anyway, that's it for today. So, thanks for watching and have a good one. Peace.